I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd fall for his boss. But then again, I never thought I'd meet someone like Catherine Sterling. It was past midnight when I found her in the conference room, surrounded by whiteboards covered in strategy maps. The overhead lights were dimmed, casting long shadows across the polished table. Most CEOs would have delegated this kind of work, handed it off to some junior team member. Catherine? She was in the trenches, sleeves rolled up to her elbows, hair falling out of its usual perfect twist. "You're here late," she said without turning around. The scent of coffee dark roast, probably her third cup and her perfume, something subtle and expensive, filled the space between us. "Could say the same about you." I set down my laptop bag, the thud breaking the quiet hum of the building's ventilation system. "The Morrison pitch? The one that's going to save or sink us?" "Yes." She finally turned, and I felt that familiar jolt in my chest. Gray-green eyes that saw too much, noticed too much. "I assume you have opinions?" I did. Boy, did I have opinions. And for the next 2 hours, we went at it debating strategy, sketching concepts on the whiteboard, occasionally laughing when an idea was particularly terrible. There was something electric about matching wits with her. The way she'd pause mid-sentence, marker hovering over the board, actually considering my point instead of dismissing it. The rare smile that would break through her CEO armor when I surprised her with an insight she hadn't considered. "You know what's fascinating?" Catherine said, around 2 a.m., her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. "You're the only person in this company who argues with me. Should I apologize?" "God, no." She turned, and suddenly we were very close. I could see the faint lines around her eyes, the exhaustion she wore like armor. Could smell that perfume mixed with the faint scent of dry erase markers. It's refreshing. Most people just agree. Even when I'm wrong. Especially when I'm wrong. "Are you ever wrong?" I meant it as a joke, but it came out different. Quieter. More intimate than I'd intended. More than you'd think. Her eyes held mine for a beat too long. I could hear my own heartbeat in the silence. Then, she stepped back, and the professional mask slid into place like a curtain dropping. "It's late. We should both go home." But neither of us moved. We just stood there, the whiteboards between us covered in our combined ideas, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. That's how it started. Not with some grand romantic gesture, but with late nights that stretched too long, conversations that went deeper than they should. Moments when our hands would brush over documents and we'd both pretend not to notice the electricity that sparked. I'm Jake Morrison. I'm 29 years old, and I'm completely, hopelessly in love with a woman, 17 years my senior, who also happens to be the CEO of our company. This is probably going to destroy both our careers. But let me tell you why it was worth it. 3 months into what I refused to call anything but a professional working relationship, Catherine started assigning me to projects that kept me close. The Morrison account became mine to co-lead. Strategy meetings somehow always included me. I told myself it was professional, she valued my input, respected my ideas, but the way she'd seek me out in company-wide meetings, catching my eye across a crowded room, the way her whole face would change when I walked through her office door, that wasn't professional. That was something else entirely. Jake. Sarah Chen from HR cornered me by the coffee machine one Monday morning. Her voice was careful, measured in that way that meant trouble. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. About? About the fact that you and Catherine have been working together until 2 a.m. 3 nights a week for the past month. She glanced around the break room, making sure we were alone. About the way you look at her. About the way she looks at you when she thinks no one's watching. Sarah leaned in closer. "I'm trying to help you here, Jake. There are already whispers. We're working on the Morrison account. I know what you're doing, and I know what you're not admitting to yourself." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You're 29. You'll bounce back from a scandal. Catherine? She's 46. She's the CEO. In an industry that's already brutal to women her age, that already questions every decision she makes. Her eyes were serious now, almost sympathetic. The age gap. Right now, sitting here in this break room, you might think it doesn't matter, but people will use it as a weapon. They'll paint her as a predator, a desperate older woman who took advantage of her younger employee. It won't matter that you're both consenting adults. It won't matter that you're brilliant at your job. The optics will destroy her, not you. Here, with mad. After Sarah left, I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, just staring at the concrete wall in front of me. The engine wasn't running. The silence was suffocating. Sarah was right. I knew she was right. I'd been telling myself the same things late at night when I couldn't sleep. But my heart didn't care about optics. My heart didn't care about 17 years or power dynamics or what people would say. My heart just knew that when I was with Catherine, I felt more alive than I ever had before. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop and actually wrote out the resignation letter. Not a draft, not a what-if exercise, a real one. Dear Board of Directors, I am writing to formally resign my position as marketing manager, effective immediately. After careful consideration, I have decided to pursue other opportunities that better align with my long-term career goals. I got 3 paragraphs in before I had to stop. My hands were shaking. The cursor blinked at me accusingly, because quitting meant never seeing her again. It meant walking away from the only woman who'd ever made me feel like this. Seen, challenged, understood. Like I wasn't just some young guy with ideas, but someone whose thoughts actually mattered. And the fear of losing that, of losing her, it was bigger than any fear of scandal or professional consequences. I stared at that letter for 20 minutes. Then, I closed the laptop without saving. Didn't even draft it properly. I was a coward, maybe. Or maybe I was just in love. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. The week of Thanksgiving was eerily quiet. Most of the office had taken the whole week off. The building felt like a ghost town. Empty cubicles, dark offices, the cafeteria closed. I'd told myself I was staying to finish Q4 reports, get ahead on next quarter's projections. But when I found Catherine in her office at 9 p.m. on Wednesday night, her desk lamp the only light on the entire floor, I knew I'd been lying to myself about why I'd stayed. Jake? She looked up, startled, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. I thought you'd gone home. Thought I'd get ahead on the Q1 projections. I leaned against her doorframe, trying to look casual. You? Same. More or less. But the way she said it, like she was admitting to something shameful, made me wonder if she'd stayed because she knew I'd be here. If she'd been hoping for this as much as I had. Have you eaten? The question was out before I could think better of it. She glanced at her computer screen, then back at me. No, actually. Thai place down the street is open till midnight. We ended up back in the office with takeout containers spread across her desk. The city spread out below us through the windows. All those tiny lights. People living their normal lives. We talked about everything except work. She told me about her divorce 5 years ago. About building this company from nothing but an idea and a maxed out credit card. I told her about growing up with a single mom who worked 3 jobs, about wanting to prove I was more than just a young guy with ideas. You don't have to prove anything, Catherine said quietly, setting down her chopsticks. Not to me. What if I want to? The words hung between us, heavy with everything we weren't saying. She set down her container slowly. Jake, I know all the reasons this is impossible. Believe me, I've listed them. Sarah cornered me last week and went through every single one in painful detail. I moved closer to her desk, but I can't stop thinking about you. About us. About what this could be if we were just brave enough. Brave? Her laugh was brittle, almost bitter. You make it sound simple, like it's just about courage. It's not. I know it's not. I was close enough now to see her pulse jumping at her throat, to see the war happening behind her eyes. But tell me you don't feel this too. Tell me I'm imagining it. Of course I feel it. Her voice cracked. That's why we can't. Why? Because of 17 years? Because of what people will say? Because, because I'm your boss. The words came out sharp, desperate. Because you have your whole career ahead of you, and getting involved with me could destroy it. Because she stopped, eyes bright with unshed tears. Because I care about you too much to let you make this mistake. What if it's not a mistake? I reached across the desk for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. What if it's the best decision either of us ever makes? For a long moment, she just looked at our joined hands. Then, slowly, like she was fighting every instinct she had, she stood, walked around the desk. We were inches apart now, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off her body. If we do this, she whispered, everything changes. You understand that? I know. We could lose everything. Our jobs, our reputations, everything we've worked for. I know that too. She kissed me then, soft at first, tentative, like she was still giving me a chance to run. I didn't run. I kissed her back like I was drowning and she was air, my hands sliding into her hair, her breath catching against my mouth. She tasted like Thai basil and possibility. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, she was crying. What are we doing? Catherine asked, her forehead pressed against mine. Something terrifying, I admitted. Something perfect. We tried to be careful after that. No public displays of affection. No obvious changes in how we interacted at work. We kept our relationship confined to after hours, to stolen moments in empty offices and late-night phone calls. But careful wasn't enough. Ryan Matthews, my colleague and supposed friend, pulled me aside after a board meeting about 6 weeks later. His face was grim. You're sleeping with Catherine. It wasn't a question. My stomach turned to ice. Don't. His voice was hard. Angry even. I've known you for 3 years. Jake, you think I can't tell when you're lying? You think I don't see the way you look at her? He glanced around the hallway, lowered his voice. This is career ending. For both of you, but especially for her. The board won't tolerate this. End it. Now. Before this becomes a mess you can't clean up. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. He shook his head. I actually feel sorry for you, man. You have no idea what's coming. 2 weeks later, Sarah requested a formal meeting. When Catherine and I walked into the HR conference room together, I knew it was over. Sarah's face was professionally neutral, but I could see the sympathy in her eyes. Please, sit. Sarah waited until we were seated, Catherine and I carefully not touching, not even looking at each other. The board has received multiple complaints over the past month about favoritism in project assignments, about an inappropriate relationship between a CEO and a subordinate. The complaints are baseless. Catherine's voice was ice cold, her CEO armor fully deployed. Jake Morrison has earned every assignment he's received, based on merit and Catherine. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not questioning Jake's work. I'm questioning the judgment of both of you. She slid a document across the table. Watchna. Come and say Fing. This is a formal investigation notice. Until this matter is resolved, you're both required to maintain strict professional boundaries. No private meetings, no project collaborations. All communications must be documented and include a third party. The investigation took 6 weeks. 6 of the longest weeks of my life. 6 weeks of stolen glances across conference rooms, of wanting to reach for her and having to catch myself. 6 weeks of lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if this was the end. 6 weeks of maintaining professional distance while dying inside. We couldn't even text each other without risking the whole thing blowing up worse. When the board finally delivered their verdict, it was somehow worse than I'd imagined. The chairman, a silver-haired man named Robert Carlyle, called us both into the main conference room. The entire board was there. 12 people in expensive suits, sitting in judgment. After extensive investigation, Carlyle said, his voice maddeningly calm. "We found no evidence of explicit misconduct. Miss Sterling did not abuse her position for personal gain. Mr. Morrison's promotions and project assignments were merit-based." I felt Catherine exhale beside me, but Carlyle wasn't finished. However, that single word dropped like a bomb. "The appearance of impropriety is deeply damaging to this company's reputation and internal culture. We cannot have a CEO whose personal life creates liability." He turned to Catherine. "Miss Sterling, we're giving you a choice. End the relationship immediately and commit to maintaining appropriate professional boundaries, or step down as CEO, effective immediately." I watched all the color drain from Catherine's face, watched her hands clench in her lap, and if I choose the latter, her voice was barely above a whisper, "We'll provide a generous severance package. Your stock options will vest immediately, but your tenure here would end today." The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. I wanted to stand up, to tell them all to go to hell, that Catherine had built this company and they had no right. But Catherine's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once, a silent plea to stay quiet. "I need 24 hours, she said finally. Of course. That night, Catherine came to my apartment. She looked smaller somehow, diminished in a way I'd never seen. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. I'd never seen her in anything but business attire. She looked vulnerable. "Human, I'm resigning," she said before I could even close the door. "What? No! Catherine, you can't!" "It's done. I called Carlyle an hour ago." She walked past me into the living room, sank onto my couch like all the strength had left her body. 15 years. I built that company from nothing. 4 employees in a rented office to 200 people across 3 states. And I'm walking away. Then I'm quitting too. If you're leaving because of me, because of us, don't. Her voice was sharp, almost angry. Don't you dare quit. Don't you dare throw away your career because of this. Someone needs to stay. Someone needs to make sure that company doesn't lose its soul, doesn't forget what we built. I need you to stay, to fight for the things we believed in. Can you do that for me?" I wanted to argue, to tell her this was wrong, that there had to be another way, that I'd find a lawyer, fight the board, something. But the way she was looking at me like I was her last hope for something good, surviving this disaster, I couldn't refuse her. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll stay. Thank you." She pulled me close, and I held her while she cried. Really cried. Not the quiet tears from that first kiss, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I held her and felt my own heart breaking. 3 days later, she sent me a text at 2 p.m. "I cleaned out my office today. 15 years in that space, and it took 45 minutes to pack everything into 3 boxes. Isn't that strange?" I read that message 7 times. Each word felt like a knife. The next few weeks were brutal. I'd call her every evening, and sometimes she'd sound okay. She'd tell me about coffee shops she was trying, books she was finally reading, plans for maybe doing some consulting work. But other times her voice would be hollow, empty. "I'm fine," she'd say, but I knew she wasn't. The woman who'd thrived on 15-hour days and impossible challenges was adrift. She'd wake up at 6 a.m. because her body was trained that way, but there'd be nowhere to go. No urgent emails, no fires to put out, no team depending on her, just silence and empty hours. I started coming over most evenings after work, sometimes with takeout, sometimes just to sit with her. One night, about a month after her resignation, she looked worse than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. She was still in pajamas at 7 p.m. "I didn't realize," she said quietly, letting me into her apartment, "how much of my identity was tied up in that title. CEO. Founder. I thought I was more than that. I thought I was a whole person with interests and hobbies and a life outside work." She laughed, but it was bitter. "Turns out that was a lie. Without the company, I don't know who I am. You're Catherine Sterling." I set down the Thai food I'd brought our thing now. You're brilliant and fierce and the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. Her voice was so small it broke my heart. I feel like I gave up everything, everything that mattered, and I don't even know if we're going to survive this. What if this destroys us too? What if I sacrificed 15 years of work for a relationship that falls apart in 6 months? I pulled her close, felt her shake against me. We will. We're going to survive this. I promise you. But honestly, I wasn't sure I believed it myself. That first year was hard. Harder than I'd expected. Harder than either of us had prepared for. Catherine struggled with her new identity. Some days were better. She'd get dressed, take meetings with potential consulting clients, even laugh at my terrible jokes. She started a boutique consulting firm, just her and a virtual assistant at first. Some days she'd come home energized, excited about a new project, but other days, I'd come over and find her just staring out the window, lost in what-ifs and might-have-beens. And the judgment? Sarah had been right about that too. People had opinions, lots of them. Isn't she a bit old for you? A friend asked at a party. Like Catherine wasn't standing right there. Must be nice, landing the boss. A former colleague sneered when I ran into him at a bar. I heard she practically groomed him. Someone whispered at a work conference, not realizing I was in the next booth. Each comment was a small violence, a reminder that we'd never escape this narrative they'd built around us. But slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice we found our rhythm. We learned to build a world that was just ours. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, Catherine teaching me which vegetables were actually in season. Cooking experiments that usually ended in takeout and laughter. Quiet nights, reading on opposite ends of the couch, our feet tangled together. Catherine's consulting firm took off faster than anyone expected. Turns out when you're not bound by corporate politics, you can do incredible work. Within a year, she had 10 clients. Within 2, she needed to hire staff. And I stayed at Sterling and Associates, working my way up, proving to everyone, but mostly to myself, that I'd earned my place, that I wasn't just the guy who slept with the CEO. 3 years after Catherine resigned, I'm the youngest VP in company history. Catherine's firm just landed a Fortune 500 client that has her busier than ever. We're good. Better than good. We bought a house together. We have inside jokes and Saturday morning routines. We have a life. Last week, I asked Catherine to meet me at the office after hours. She was confused. I never asked her to come back there. Why are we here? She asked, when I led her to that same conference room where it all started. Because this is where I first realized I was in love with you. I pulled out a small box from my jacket pocket. My hands were shaking, and I thought it was the right place to ask. Catherine Sterling, will you marry me? She looked at the ring. At me. At the whiteboards, still covered in strategy maps from someone's recent meeting. Then, she started laughing, that real, unguarded laugh that I'd fallen in love with. You're proposing in a conference room? I'm proposing in our conference room. You're absolutely ridiculous, she said. But she was crying now too. Is that a yes? It's a yes. God, yes. You ridiculous man. She kissed me. And it felt like that first night all over again, terrifying and perfect and exactly right. People still have opinions about us. Probably always will. The age gap, the power dynamics, the messy way we started. It's all fair game for judgment. We'll always be that couple to some people. But here's what they don't see when they're whispering about us. They don't see the way she challenges me to be better every single day, the way she believes in me even when I don't believe in myself. They don't see the way I make her laugh until she snorts wine out of her nose, the way I hold her on the bad days when the ghosts of what she lost still haunt her. They don't see the way we built something real and honest and beautiful from the wreckage of scandal. Was it worth it? Every job she lost, every whisper, every sideways glance, every doubt? I asked her that once, late at night, after a particularly brutal day. We were lying in bed, the room dark, except for the streetlight coming through the blinds. Would you do it again? I whispered. Knowing everything we'd lose, everything it would cost, Catherine was quiet for a long moment. I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, steady and sure. Then she turned to face me, her eyes clear in the darkness. "Jake Morrison," she said, her voice steady and certain. "I'd do it 1,000 times over. 10,000. Every single time. And that's the truth of it. Love doesn't always fit in neat boxes. Sometimes it's messy and complicated and costs you more than you ever planned to pay. Sometimes it means choosing between the career you've built and the person you can't live without. Sometimes it means weathering judgment and whispers and knowing people will always question whether you made the right choice. But sometimes it's worth every single sacrifice. My name is Jake Morrison. I fell in love with Catherine Sterling when I was 29 and she was 46. She was my boss, my mentor, the CEO of our company, and eventually, my whole world. She gave up everything for us, and I'd spend the rest of my life making sure she never regretted it. This is our story, and I wouldn't change a single page.